What do you think is the ramification, from a culture perspective, um, you know, from all this ability to create something so real that we can't even tell the difference?
To me, it doesn't actually matter, but I'm in the minority because I mean, like, if a piece of art is compelling to me, it's compelling to me, right? I mean, someone else might think it's complete garbage, but if I feel a connection to it, then that's still valid, right?
Welcome to Practical AI, everybody. My name is Jeff. I'm here with Peter Lynn. Practical AI is brought to you by Pocket AI. Pocket AI is a tool you can use to edit the weights of your model. With Pocket AI, you can prune over 60% of the weights in your model while increasing accuracy. Peter, today we just want to have some fun and talk about the AI Art Turing Test and kind of the ramifications, more broadly speaking, as we get into the concepts of reasoning, superintelligence, and all that stuff. But the AI Art Turing Test came out about 6 months ago, and you and I both spent some time kind of taking it. Tell us a little bit about Turing tests in general and what this particular test, so kind of demonstrated.
Yeah. So just take a step back. So Turing test was created by Alan Turing, and the original test was if you were to have a conversation between two participants, one was an AI, one was a human. If you could tell the difference between the AI and the human, it meant that AI had reached the point where it was artificial intelligent. So since then, we've realized that actually that's not a good test. So this AI art test, it's actually more for fun. It's not really rigorous. It's just more of can people look at pictures and decide was this AI generated or created by an actual human.
And the Turing test also, if I remember correctly, was the automated cars, right? That they kind of do this test on an annual basis or something like that, right?
It used to be, but I forget what year it was, but more than a decade back, found that you could actually just write a really good chatbot, even with this is before Transformers. So even with just a simple handwritten chatbot, they're actually able to fool more than half of the people that talk to the chatbot. So that pretty much quickly proved that well, a really fancy chatbot does not make an AI.
And then what about the driving test? Have they figured out like that? Are they still using the Turing test to kind of test as a standard baseline or anything like that?
No, so in other fields, people have tried to come up with a quote unquote Turing test for it. It's the problem is that as things get better, it scores better, but then it still fails and sucks at things that are similar to it, but not officially in the test.
Okay. Well, why don't we bring up just the art one that, and I'm just gonna scroll through these, and we can just kind of have this kind of in the background.
Yep.
But just on first blush, it's not easy to tell
Yeah.
what is AI and what is human.
Yes. Yep.
Did you have a method when you were going through this and you were taking the tests that you were looking at?
So I basically look for things that look inconsistent. So the easy ones are anatomy is wrong, so fingers, positions of limbs. The other one is if things don't line up correctly. For example, like buttons on a shirt, or if shadows are in the wrong place, or if something looks really glossy and there's no, if it looks super sharp.
Hmm.
Because a human painter, a human artist, wouldn't do that as a first kind of impulse, right? Because normally in art class, you're taught to have perspective. You're taught to have, if you're drawing 1D, 2D, 3D perspective, there's certain rules you got to follow. Like things in the foreground are sharp, things in the background are more blurry. Whereas an AI doesn't really know that, so it just makes everything sharp.
Okay. And if we get to the point where it's hard for the average human to get, I don't know, a majority of these, well, maybe let's just pick 75% right. Because you could probably just fail your way through the whole thing and just get 50%. But
Yeah.
what does that mean? Does it mean that we're kind of in a position where uh, AI is as good as the human in terms of art and creativity, or is it kind of a fake test?
Well, to me, it's not. It shouldn't be framed in terms of fake tests or not, right? This is really about as the technology improves, it's going to get harder and harder for people to tell what's AI and what's human. So, for example, when I took it, I actually thought quite a few of the human produced art was fake because something didn't look quite right, but it was just human error, right?
Yeah,
So, when it gets to the point where you can't tell the difference between a human error and AI error, then the question becomes okay, what's more important a piece of art? Is it the emotional context, the emotional weight, right? Because like some of these examples I guess were AI, but they were actually human, but it was because I didn't feel a connection to that piece of art.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, this brings in a slightly broader conversation just about the impacts of hyperrealism, right? When it comes to anything, right? So there's obviously, you know, so much fraud and abuse that could happen with technology like this. It's one thing to create cool art and fool a person, but it's another thing to mimic someone's voice and call a bank or um, create an email that is so realistic that people are clicking into it and giving up their bank account. So, um, what do you think is the ramification, from a culture perspective, um, you know, from all this ability to create something so real that we can't even tell the difference?
To me, it doesn't actually matter, but I'm in the minority because I mean, like, if a piece of art is compelling to me, it's compelling to me, right? I mean, someone else might think it's complete garbage, but if I feel a connection to it, then that's still valid, right? So the human experience is still valid because it's the same thing as someone loves football and they go to every game and they're there cheering and they love going with their kid. They get their hot dog, they get the beer, and they're like, yes, right? But if someone hates football and they watch the Super Bowl, they'll be like, what's the whole point of this? Like, why are all these people going bonkers over the Super Bowl, right? So yeah, I mean, there's going to be times when technology does something and you don't particularly care for it, but that does, in my mind, that doesn't make it not valid because that's like saying everyone that believes in religion is wrong because that's valid for them, or everyone that believes in science is wrong because it's valid for them. So for me, it's important to remember that there's a human being at the end that's part of this process.
So one of the things I've been thinking about in this space is that the more things become hyper real and unable to detect, the fewer people will engage with this technology.
Yeah.
Um, at least in terms of it having an impact. For example, it seems like what our biggest fears were for Gen Z was that they would be these, hyper consumed social media, drones.
Right.
And yet and I think a lot of that is happening, but there's a sizable chunk of that generation that has basically minimized their experiences with social media and technology because, well, I don't know why, but I can just speak for myself. If everything I see online, I have to wonder whether it's the truth, I probably won't want to be online as much,
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
and therefore it becomes not a self-fulfilling prophecy, but an inverse relationship.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's like, kind of to your point, what does it matter if we attain super intelligence, whatever that even means, if people are going to reduce their exposure to it and their interactions with it to the degree that it can't impact them?
Yeah. Like the example is on most of the platforms, social media platforms, there are chatbots that are flooding Meta, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I mean, there's just chatbots everywhere now, and the younger generation have gotten really good at picking those out. And so, what we're seeing now is a lot of younger generations are actually not using social media as much because one, they can tell it's fake, and two, they find it boring and stupid. Whereas I think the older generations, like Boomers and Gen X, we're a little different. And so for us, it might not be the same thing. So, for example, like a boomer might have a really hard time differentiating between a human drawn piece of art and AI generated art. But that probably won't bother them because they're from a different generation, different cultural context. And if we look at art, like we look at the Renaissance period, paintings strive to be realistic. But then we had the Impressionist era, which kind of revolted against that because at that time photography became a real thing, and so there's no point trying to paint exactly what you see because a camera could do the same thing. And so then we had the impressionist movement kind of revolt against that.
Yeah.
Then after that we had the surrealist movement where we had like Dali and we had people drawing super real things, but it was purposely distorted to kind of communicate some idea or some feeling or some message, right? So I think same thing will happen with this AI art and AI generated stuff.
Well, and people are pretty creative, right? They figure out the hack. I mean, this is kind of an embarrassing example, but I kept getting this bill for Comcast that I didn't owe, and I went through their customer service chatbot hell, and then their offshore
Right.
hell for 6 months. And every single conversation I had to start over. Every single conversation I had to start with the chatbot. And every single time someone said, "Yeah, we'll get this straightened away," and then they didn't. And then, when it finally went to a creditor,
Yeah.
I kind of freaked out, and I was like, "Okay, then I'm going to hack your system." So instead of just going through the traditional channels, I decided to email the Attorney General office of Florida,
Yeah.
told them that I was, being mistreated by Comcast. And sure enough, I got an email from Comcast corporate headquarters saying, "We'd love to solve this problem for you,"
Yeah.
after the Attorney General contacted them. So um, now that's, unfortunate that, has to go to that level. But humans figure out problems.
Yeah.
And if all these chatbots are taking over the universe, eventually people will just stop interacting with them and just say that this is no way to go. I don't get anywhere there. I'm going to figure out another solution,
Yep.
and it's off to the races.
Yeah, actually, there are websites that purposely list all the hacks for all the automated chatbot helps,
That's great.
so that if you're frustrated, you can look it up, and it'll tell you the steps to bypass all that and get to human directly.
I want that app. That's the app I want. That's the only app I'll need.
The thing is, it's like every time someone creates a website and consolidates this, usually the companies say, "Hey, like you can't do that," so they shut it down. But then someone has that information and they upload it to the website. So it's
Yeah,
this cat and mouse game of like,
yeah. Find it in the Reddit threads, right?
yeah, yeah,
Well, this is good. We'll post the Turing test in this in the comment box and the in the description box, and I encourage everyone to take it. It's kind of fun. Takes a little bit, maybe 20 minutes or so, but it's a good way to kind of see just how far AI has come in creating what could be real or not. And so, Peter, thanks. Thanks for the topic conversation. You can always follow us on Spotify as well if you like just the audio version. And like I always say, listen to us in 2x speed because Peter and I talk slowly. Thanks, everybody.